All right, what about now? I hope that now we've managed to solve the issue. Now it's okay, perfect. So thank you, David. All right, so my mistake, I just have my mic muted. All right, so let's get back to the presentation though, and navigate to that. So we start with BIM for manufacturers, and this presentation would be slightly different than the one that is usually presented during the BIM conferences. And instead of focusing strictly on the BIM, we focus on the BIM in respect to manufacturers. And when it comes to the manufacturers, the BIM is used to provide a content. Because content, as the Leo Oden from Top Rank Marketing Agency from the US states, is the reason where the search is being at the first place. And from the manufacturer perspective, BIM and content are working side by side. On today's agenda, we will have the meeting separated in 3 sections. At the very beginning, we do some small recap when it comes to BIM. So some of you might already be familiar with that. Some of them know, so it's not. So we will just have a quick overview of what the BIM really is. But we will focus in the second and the third part what are the opportunities and how to address the challenges which actually are in front of the manufacturer if they would like to go into the BIM. At the very end, we will also have some free time to answer your questions if there are, of course, any. All right, so let's proceed. First of all, I would like to introduce myself and my colleague. So my name is Marcin Michalski, and I'm a co-founder of BIMStreamer, a platform for manufacturers that manage the BIM files. I graduated the University of Technology at computer science faculty, so I can consider that as a software engineer, but due to my life experience, which are focused around digital solutions for manufacturer, I prefer to consider myself as marketing technologist. And together with me, there is Jacek. Jacek is currently in Lithuania on one of our projects. And Jacek is BIMStreamer, BIM specialist. Jacek, if you could introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm a Master of Science in Engineering, specializing in building technology. I graduated on Wrocław University of Technology, and in my professional life, I am focused on optimizing the way how people work.
All right, Jacek, thank you for the introduction. So let's move on. Let's start with a short recap of what the BIM is. So in order to do that, let's try to go back a bit into the history and figure out why the BIM was actually invented. So during the ancient time, when the process of designing a structure, I don't have sound. Okay, I think that's, yes, I don't have sound either. All right, I think that we still have some issue with the sound. It was fine and then it dropped. All right, do you have any content blocker enabled? Ad block. Do you have any content blockers? Jacek, maybe if you unmute yourself, maybe now the audience would be able to hear you. I can hear you well.
I just asked the participants if they have any content blockers that might disable the sound. I have experienced such an issue before.
All right, so maybe if anyone else has issue with the sound, because some of the participants are actually hearing it and some of them don't. I tried another browser and the problem is solved. All right, so Anke actually mentioned, so one of the participants mentioned that they switched to a different browser and it starts working.
So Microsoft Edge might be a solution if it does not work on Chrome or other browser, I think.
All right, so shall we continue? Has anyone else has any issue with the audio? Okay, take silence as no. Google Chrome has solved the problems, as one of the participants mentioned. All right, so information to all the audience, in case you have any issue with the audio, please try to switch to a different browser, as some of the participants already hear it. All right, so let's just get back to our presentation and let's try to understand why the BIM was actually created. So let's start with some history classes. So during the ancient time, the process of designing the structure was severely simple. It was designed in the head of the designer, and once the design was finished, it was transferred on some piece of paper and then handed over for the execution. It was relatively simple, and the process actually didn't change that much up to today. Of course, during the several, let's say, decades or even centuries of evolution, we've managed to come up with additional drawings board, this gigantic drawings board that you might be familiar with, which used the rapidograph. And then in the 70s, during the third industrial revolution, the PC computers were so common that the construction industry invented the tools called the computer-aided designs, known as the CAD systems. But the process of the design didn't change that much ever since. And the best way to picturize that is to present a McLeamy curve. McLeamy was the CEO of the architectural and designing company from the US, where he was managed to somehow picturize how the typical process of construction looks like. And as you can see on the drawings, you have two gray curves and one dashed curve in the middle. So the dashed curve presents the standard way the process is being executed, while the gray curves corresponds to accordingly the capability of controlling the budget and the cost of the changes. As you see, the greatest impact during the standard construction process is focused on the construction and documentation. And this is the place where the cost of the changes starts increasing rapidly, and the possibility to control the budget is decreasing. It's definitely declining. That's why the McLeany came up with additional approach where the effort could be shifted in the earlier stages into the design and concept, where we have a better control of the budgeting and introduction of the changes are relatively small. And the phase of preparing the documentation he wanted to replace with something which could actually generate it instead of creating it manually. So as you can see, in the construction and documentation phase, the effort is very limited. This, in the long run, allows us to better control the budget and reduce the cost related with introducing the changes. So, what is actually BIM? Most of you may think that BIM is strictly focused on the 3D geometry. But BIM, as the name states, is not only the models, but it's also the information. So, due to the fact that we're talking about the manufacturer, BIM for manufacturer, let's focus on the information which might be relevant from the manufacturer perspective. So what kind of information we can have inside the BIM? So, of course, we can have our product sheets, quality certificates, technical approvals. We can also be able to parameterize our products, especially if we're dealing with products which has several variants, which may both involve components, geometry, and attributes of the products. We should be able to parameterize that, and BIM can provide it to us. Moreover, we can provide additional product information like descriptions, like attributes, like classification systems specific for specific markets, which can be very usable for those that would actually use this object. And last but not least, we can include the marketing information. So we can include our unique selling points called USP, or even a pricing. So this is actually something which can start triggering our sales. So what are the facts around BIM currently? Most of the reasons why the BIM was actually invented was to put designers, or in general the AAC sector, on the ground. I had a friend who is an architect, and he told me once that before the BIM era, the designers were dealing with something pretty much abstract. So they were dealing with lines. Currently, when it comes to BIM, they need to deal with objects. So they are dealing with walls, with slopes, with beams, roof, windows, and so on. So in Poland, we had this saying, probably you have similar one at your country, that paper accepts everything. And the idea with BIM is not to accept everything. Because if we're able to detect any clutches during the design phase, it would reduce the necessity of introducing the changes later on, which, as you see on the McLeany's curves, it's more costly and it's harder to control the budget with that. Moreover, BIM allows us to easily control the changes. So due to the fact that we're not dealing with 2D drawings, we're dealing with 3D model instead, we're able to shift the objects inside the model. And if we need to generate if we need to have a 2D drawings, we can generate that automatically out of the 3D model. So if we change something in one place, we will have it adapted on each and every 2D projections. That's what the McLeany mentioned when he was talking about utilizing the tools to perform the automated generation of the documentation. Moreover, I'm sure that you're familiar that during the construction phase, there are several responsibilities, several disciplines that take part in the process of preparing the structure. So we are talking about the designers, investors, facility managers. We're talking about constructors and different disciplines like electricians or plumbers. And all of them might use different tools. By the time before BIM, they didn't have a way of smooth communication from one tool to another. If an architect creates something in their CAD system and let's say the electricians had their own tool, they had to create their independent projects. And in the end, they were losing the data. And the BIM was introduced to improve the interoperability so they could work as a team. And last but not least, you need to take under consideration the fact that BIM was introduced not only for the design and for the construction, but for the full structure life cycle, which includes also facility management. All right, so what are the facts around the BIM currently? So BIM was already introduced as a mandatory solution for the public tenders in various European countries, also in Singapore, in Asia, and in the US, in North America. And also there was a regulation from the EU which recommended to utilize the BIM in the public tender. This is, of course, just a recommendation for now, but several countries in Europe already have it mandated. And starting from 2019, also Italy introduced BIM for public tender as a mandatory requirement. And when we're talking about the facts around the BIM, let's focus on what the designers think about it. So there is a report prepared by the NBS. It's an organization from the UK, which is focusing on the BIM topic, which was done around the AAC sector, so architectural engineering construction. And according to the result of the reports, most of the designers say that the executors require them from using the BIM. Moreover, they believe that BIM is not only the 3D geometry. For them, even more important is actually the information inside it. And we're talking about great majority of the designers that believes that BIM is foremost a place where they can collect the information about the actual structure. And last but not least, but I think that this would be one of the most important statistic that you might find interesting, is that the designers believe that the manufacturers are the one responsible for providing them the libraries that they can use during the design. I had a friend, she is an architect, and she told me, Martin, you know, previously we had something like a year to design a huge structure, a shopping mall or similar office space. Currently, we have something like a quarter. And if there is a chance that I can simplify my work by selecting the ready-made prepared BIM libraries, I will do that. If the manufacturers don't have it, I will just find another one who has. And these are the facts when it comes to the BIM. Before we go to the next section, are there any questions till now? Is everything clear? All right, I see no questions, so we can move on. So let's move on to the next part. So we're now focusing on the opportunities which manufacturer may have when it comes to the BIM. So what are the opportunities? Of course, we're able to drive sales. So if we're able to prepare the BIM libraries, because that's what we're talking when it comes to the BIM and the manufacturers, so the content that we were referring to at the very beginning of our presentation, we're able to provide something that will simplify the designer's work. Moreover, we're able to promote our solutions. So if we can say that we have a BIM libraries, we are ready to go with BIM, this is actually also a promotion and marketing tool for our marketing team. Moreover, this also drives the brand awareness. So if we cover our target audience with our content, which drives the search, as we said at the very beginning, we're increasing the awareness of the brand. And last but not least, BIM forces us to structurize our product information. So in the end, it could even help us to streamline the process of managing our product information, which I will describe in the later chapter. So when it comes to the opportunities, of course, there are several ones, as you see on the slide, but we should also take into consideration who we're actually targeting. And we have several target groups, which might not be quite obvious when it comes to BIM. So when we're talking about the BIM, of course, the designers, these are one of our main target group that we would like to provide the content which is usable. But apart from the designers, we also want to reach the investors, because in the end, they are the one that actually are paying. Apart from the investors, don't forget that the BIM is used during the full product or structure life cycle. So also during the facility management, and the installators, the service professionals might be also a target group which can gain benefits by using BIM. And last but not least, we have our resellers, which we want to use as a sales channel. So give them the tools so they could do their work properly. So let's just try to walk through each and every target group and try to picturize what are the typical scenarios of using BIM by each and every target group you see on the slide. So let's start with the designers. So the designers creates a design. In order to do that, they might use the CAD system, but they might also use the BIM system, which is getting more and more popular. We have, of course, several BIM platforms available on the market. We have, of course, Revit, ArchiCAD. There is, of course, Bentley, Trimble, and several other players. And depending on the specific designers' disciplines, whether we are talking about the architects, constructors, electricians, plumbers, they might also use a specific for their disciplines tools. But they will use the BIM platform, and once they start using it, they need to have libraries which they can use so that they could speed up their work. And last but not least, once they place the libraries inside their designs, they can drive sale. So the designer can become your actually salesperson. Moreover, we were talking about the other target groups like investors. So investors, they won't check the BIM designs. They are not familiar with BIM platforms at all, but we could use BIM to address them. For instance, we can use 3D geometry inside the mobile application and use it to let the investor immerse in our product portfolio, to let them actually make something tangible, even if it isn't currently. Let's just imagine the situation that we are on the trade fairs and we would like, or we have a sales representative, and we would like to present our products to a vast majority of potential clients, but due to the fact that our products are relatively large, we are not able to bring them with us. So we could use new technologies with combination of BIM to present it in front of the customer. And in the end, it can also drive sale. The other target group are service professionals, like installators, for instance, facility managers. Due to the fact that BIM is used during the full structural life cycle, they might like to also simplify their work. So why not to provide them with solution to do that? Like, for instance, mobile application, which can act as a digital manual, which help them to actually picturize where to install the product, how to install the product through some video explainer, and also through some additional documentation. So in the end, we could gain the loyalty of the service professionals. Another opportunity are the resellers, so the ones that actually can act as our sales channels. So as I said at the very beginning, just give them the tools to improve the sales. They are our sales guys, so let's help them, provide them with up-to-date information, provide them with up-to-date 3D objects so they could do their work properly. And in order to address the requirements of each and every target group, we need to face several challenges. So what are the challenges? First of all, as I mentioned at the very beginning, from manufacturer perspective, BIM is actually content. And content contains both 3D geometry, but also the information. So let's focus on the information. What are the challenges around the information? Well, someone needs to provide this information inside the BIM files. Usually, if you take into consideration the fact that you're dealing with a bunch of data related with product information, different specific region requirements, even languages, because we're in Europe, at least most of us. So we know that we're dealing with several languages, and in the end, we have several target groups. So investors would be interested in different information, designers in different, facility manager and service professional in a different one. So we need to be able to provide relevant information specific to both specific target group that we're trying to reach and specific region, because probably we need different information in the UK and different in Italy. not mentioning the language. And just as a recap from the statistics of the NBS report, almost all designers believe that the BIM is the information that really matters. The other challenge is actually a management. Some people even explains the BIM acronym as BIM information, not only modeling, but also BIM information management. So from the manufacturer's perspective, what are the challenges when it comes to the management? Well, the first challenge is to be able to update the product information. Why it's so important? Because sometimes if you don't have your product information and we're dealing with a construction, the consequences might be quite severe. I remember a situation that I've heard from my colleague architect. She was designing a gigantic shopping mall in Poland, and she was designing something like 200 fire protection gates inside the mall. She took the product information from the manufacturer site. The investor ordered the products, and when they arrived at the site, she realized, or the general contractor realized that the information provided by the manufacturer were not up to date. It ended up in forging 200 concrete walls. So it was quite a huge investment for the investor and huge reputation loss for the manufacturer. So the data update is quite substantial. The other thing is the versioning. Please bear in mind that BIM is used not only during the design and construction phase, but it is also used during the facility management. So you can be asked after several years from now to provide a historical information, historical object, historical model of your product containing the information from that time, because that was the time when the product was actually bought, and you should be able to provide it. And last but not least, no matter how good your product and how good your BIM libraries are, you need to be able to provide this information to your target groups. So you need to publish them, because if you don't do that, no one will know about it. The other challenge, which manufacturer needs to meet, are also related with the information and covers the topic of the classification systems. But I think my colleague Jacek, who is a BIM expert at BIMStreamer, could put more light on that. Jacek, the stage is yours.
Hello again. So in today's world, every industry is producing vast numbers of goods that need to be somehow clearly described and found. Because of that, multiple ways to classify products unambiguously have been developed. Classifications ease the communication within sector and ensure that the same goods are provided with information organized in the same way. This allows, for example, to avoid misunderstandings, which decreases costs of wrong orders, better logistics, easy creation of catalogs, and detailed cost estimates. Product information, which includes classification, needs to be provided to all the parties involved. In BIM, it is inserted into the model. So, for example, the designer during the design process knows that a certain product that he or she is looking for is the right part according to the classification. Let's take a look at what classification tells us about a product. For example, we have a Uniclass 2015 code like this. SS here stands for systems, and the next number group tells us that we are talking about a product which belongs to piped supply systems. The subgroup number 15 narrows it down to water extraction treatment, and storage systems. The following number section tells that we are talking about potable water storage tank systems, and in the end, the last object number specifies it as plastics potable water storage systems. Looks pretty easy, isn't it? The challenge is that just as languages, different countries and industries use their own systems of describing products. For example, ETIM-MC is a new system developed in the Netherlands, which differs in its codes from international ETIM. Uniclass is widely used in the UK, and E-class is respected in Germany. Construction industry in the United States uses Omniclass respectively. Companies operating in multiple markets have to take into consideration, after they describe the product in a standardized way, the models should be available with the information adjusted for the specific region, so the customers in a certain country would have the right information. And that's all about classifications I was about to tell.
All right, Jacek, thank you for explaining that. The other challenge that manufacturers should think about is how we would like to reach our target audience. So remember at the very beginning of the presentation, we were talking about different target groups, like investors, like designers, of course, facility managers, service professional, or resellers. And they might actually need to be addressed separately. So the service professional, for instance, might be willing to interact with our brand by going to physical store. The investor might be more keen of using virtual reality application or augmented reality application to make it tangible, to see how the object actually looks like, while the designers might be more keen on using either manufacturer site, BIM portals, or even some BIM plugins to collect the libraries which later on they could use in their projects. And in the end, if you take all of that under consideration, plus you think about different regional settings, different languages, different classification system, it might become quite a hassle, because usually, even if the manufacturer deals with several, in marketing technology, we call that the channels, so several places where the information about their product portfolio needs to be provided, they are doing that independently for each and every channel. So how to address that properly? The idea is to introduce something which in marketing technology is called omni-channel. So in comparison to multi-channel, the omni-channel is more like a level up solution, which not only address several channels at once, but also make these channels interoperable, so they are interconnected with each other, which gives us several benefits. First of all, if you have channels interconnected with each other, whenever we change something in all channels which are relevant. So if I change some data from, let's say, I don't know, from the height 5 to 7, and I have an omni-channel strategy in place, then I'm able to update this information in all connected channels, whether this is my online library, whether this is my mobile application, some BIM portal, VR or AR application, or even to generate my print catalog, which could also be the case. Moreover, with the current behavior of the users, it's very common that the user actually performs something which is called cross-channel behavior. When I'm talking about the cross-channel behavior, I mean that, let's just take an example of a designer, an interior designer. The interior designers go to physical store to look for the sofa that he would like to use in his design. He found a sofa that matches his requirement. He grabs his phone out of his pocket and scans the QR code which is next to the sofa product. Then he gets back to his studio or to home, open his tools to do the design, and due to the fact that he scanned it and the manufacturer makes sure that the channels are interconnected, he is able to take the model of the product he scanned directly in his design tool. Once he do that, he can later on check that again on the mobile application with the utilization of the augmented reality to see how it actually will look like on the site. So with this short story, our potential target user were using 3 channels at once. And this is getting more and more common. That's why in order to work on several channels simultaneously, we should keep in mind that we should always have the data up to date in all channels correspondingly, and that the channels should be interconnected. So how we could address that from more technical perspective? What could be the solution to be able to centrally manage the data, dispatch it to a different target group, to different regions containing different languages, quality certificates, different classification system, which are specific to specific region, specific target groups, and specific channel? So we could start with a platform which could allow us to manage the BIM data. This platform should be connected to your product information. Why this platform should not contain the product information? Because you might want to use the product information also for non-BIM specific channels, like your online catalog, which has nothing to do with a BIM, but you also like to provide the product information over there. On the other hand, you shouldn't duplicate this information inside the BIM platform, because then you would need to manage the information in more than one place. And in the end, if you will do that, it's quite tedious and definitely error prone. So instead, use the information that you have already. You probably have some SAP system, ERP, and the best way is to store the product information in the BIM systems. BIM system is a special kind of database, in an easy word saying, which allows us to plan our product hierarchies for different markets. So we can plan one portfolio for one market, the other portfolio for different market. We can also plan inside the BIM system which attributes should be visible on which channels, whether they should be available in our BIM files, whether they should be available in our online catalog, mobile application, or print catalog. We can address different classification systems specific for different regions. And of course, last but not least, languages. So for the DACH region, probably we would like to provide the information in German. For the UK market, the UK, for the Scandinavian, maybe Swedish, Norwegian, or also English. So we would be able to control also that. And once we have the data classified in our product information system, we should provide a 3D object. The object can work as more like as a template. So it doesn't have to contain any product information, only the information about the 3D geometry. And the rest of the data can be actually provided directly from the product information systems and combine automatically. This is the same thing as McLeany mentioned at the very beginning. So prepare everything at the design stage and generate rest automatically. And this happens the same way. Preparing the objects, preparing the data, and the rest is generated automatically. So we don't need to generate a specific object for France, for UK, for DACH region, for Poland. We don't need to generate specific object for eTeamMC, for Uniclass, for OmniClass, or any other classification system. We just need to orchestrate the data in our product information system. We need to provide intelligent, smart 3D object, and let the automation do the rest. So once we are able to generate the data, we're able to automatically generate a specific file for specific market, for specific region. It may contain specific quality certificates, technical approval, of course, classification systems, specific languages, and it could be more than one. Moreover, we can also adapt the format of the object to address the specific market. Once I spoke with one manufacturer, and I was told that for one market, the manufacturer would like to have a single file which contains the vast majority of all the variants of the product which are inside the same family. But in the same time, the same manufacturer wants to have an individual variants as a separate files available for different regions, because that was more natural way of dealing with the libraries in a different region. So once we have it fully automated, we're also able to control that centrally. Then, if we would like to automatize the process of combining product information and 3D geometry, we need to remember that our objects will be used for several years, because BIM is not only a matter of preparing the design or executing a construction, but this is also a part of a documentation which will be used during the facility management. And there could be a case that someone could give you a ring and ask you for the historical version of your BIM file from, let's say, 2 years back. And the product could either evolve and has changed completely, or even become discontinued. So you're not even sharing this information on your online catalog or mobile application anymore, and yet someone actually may need it. So we should also keep in mind that it's not only a matter of generating, but also versioning. And last but not least, as I told you before, no matter how good your libraries and how utilizable your information inside the libraries are, if you don't share it properly, no one will know about it, so no one will actually use it. So the next part would be to publish this information into corresponding places where either designers, architects, constructors, investors, facility managers would like to use it. And you need to take under consideration the fact that depending on the market, they might be at different channels that you might be willing to use. For instance, even if we just restrict to the BIM portals, there are different BIM portals available all around the world, which has a different market share depending on the specific regions. Of course, there is one biggest, I think, BIM portal available on the market. I'm sure you know about which portal I'm talking about, which has the largest market share in terms of the international or a global market. But if you take a closer look on the regional markets, you will see that there are different local players on specific markets which has a greater market share. And in order to address larger range of the designers, you might also consider to be able to publish the information on the local BIM portals. For instance, in Poland, the most popular BIM portal is actually Archispace, which has almost 50% of the total market share. Apart from that, BIM portals are not the only channels that you might want to use in order to promote your products, because after all, BIM portals are more like a market places. It's something similar to Amazon or eBay. So if you would like to promote your products and your libraries, maybe you would like to also promote it via your own channels, like your own private BIM portals available under your domain, which are dedicated for your product portfolio, which aren't shared with your competitors, and which you can fully customize to help your clients smoother, to simplify your clients or your users' work with your product portfolio. So in order to do that, you need to control that centrally. Otherwise, it would be more like a hassle to address several BIM portals, several online libraries of your own, maybe print catalogs, maybe also BIM plugins if you would like to have one, which also might contain some configurators. And if you would like to do that independently, it's taking into account the fact that you need to deal with different product portfolio, different customer segment, different classification system, technical approvals, and languages. It would be quite a challenge to do that without an automation. So in order to, if you have any questions to this part, please, do you have any questions to this part right now, or everything is clear? All right, so oh yeah, there is some question. All clear so far. All right. As I understand, okay, question. As I understand, BIM works fine for more or less standardized products. How is it for individual pieces? For example, a lot of different size and measurement and technically data. All right, so the question, yeah, so BIM works for standardized products. When it comes to the specific product information inside the files, it's always up to what you have configured in your product information system. So if you will have more sophisticated, both technical and non-technical information, this can be placed. However, if you would like to configure your product, so your product is more configurable, you can actually address that in two ways. First of all, you can prepare a smart 3D object which can be steered with the information which are provided from the product information database, like from the BIM system, for instance. Or you can even go a bit further and you can create an online or online configurator or something like a plugin for the BIM platform, which allows the users to actually customize the product on their own. I'm not sure whether this is the answer for the question. All right, okay. Can you work without BIM in example-based? All right, yes. So in order to provide a useful BIM data, you of course need to work with some data sources. I just use the BIM system as an example because this is the obvious way to work with the product information. However, you can actually use different systems or even an Excel sheets. So that, and you can have more than one system which can be integrated with the platform. Usually it's integrated by the SKU. All right, another question. All right, I think that's all right, guys. So we can maybe do some. Oh, one more question. Why is it too hard to find BIM suppliers? I am an architect and I find difficulties on finding BIM furnitures. Yeah, so the thing is that when it comes to manufacturers, it's more like an ongoing process. It's like manufacturer because it's more like a question from the designer. So this is This is a designer question. Yes. So the thing is that manufacturers are in the process of preparing the BIM libraries, and some of them are already prepared, some of them not. I'm sure that within a year from that, you would be able to find more libraries than are available today. Even basing on the project that we are currently doing, we see that this is more like an ongoing process. So Javid, I think that you just need to give the manufacturer a bit more time. All right, guys, I think that we can move on to something like a very short recap. Just for your information, if you would like to ask some additional question, you will see soon a button which allows you to arrange a meeting and ask dedicated questions for your cases on an individual call. And together with scheduling the meeting, you will also receive a promo code for a bunch of our services. So we can now move on to something like a summary. So what kind of benefits the omni-channel brings to the manufacturer world? So first of all, we're able to centrally manage our BIM objects. And when I'm talking about the BIM object, I'm not talking only about the 3D geometry, I'm also talking about the data which are inside. As a result, we are able to very easily update that. So in case we would like to change the data, add something, remove something, add some classification system, it's quite easy to do so because we don't need to do that individually for each and every channel. Talking about the channel, we're able to adapt it properly. So if we're actually addressing our online catalog, probably we might want to provide slightly different information than our mobile catalog, which may be more dedicated for the service professionals and investors rather than for the designers. Same refers to a different regional support. Moreover, if we control several channels centrally, we can also integrate with both internal and external ones. So we can actually use the external range of the external portals. So if we would like to reach vast majority of audience, we can do that using several means of communication. Of course, we are able to collect the information from different channels, combine that in a form of a statistics, which allows us to perform analysis and as a result, figure out operational activities. I also mentioned about the historical data and the way how we should deal with them. So with the omni-channel and the platform behind that, we are able to do that. And at the very beginning of the presentation, we were talking about the public tenders. So in several countries, there are already public tenders which requires to use BIM as a standard tool. And during the public tender process, you're not able to use the explicit information about particular products. So you would need to provide an anonymized version of your product information. So why not to control it? Why can't we just adopt it as part of our automated process? We can create an anonymized information inside our product information system and let it generate an anonymized version of our product so that the designer could use them in the public tenders. So as I mentioned at the very beginning, if the designer has a possibility to make his life easier, he will do that. So let's help him do that. And last but not least, BIM was also used for cost estimation together with the classification system. The classification system, especially the OmniClass from the US, were actually used at the very beginning to improve the budgeting. And the BIM itself introduced the budgeting functionality. So let's use it. Why can't we just have a plugin which can utilize the cost estimation, the schedule functionality of the BIM platform, collects all the products of ours, and generate the offer so that the designer can have the offer out of the box. I have a friend who is an architect, and he needs to deal with this cost estimation all the time. And he told me that he's sending 3 or 4 inquiries to the manufacturers asking for the price quotation. And you know which one he selects? He selects the one which answered the first. Because, first of all, these are not his money. He's under huge time pressure. He needs to do that. And he knows that it's very likely that if he sends 3 or 4 inquiries, he would be happy if someone actually answers in some respective amount of time. All right, so once we have the omnichannel already in place, what we can do with that? So, of course, we can publish our information into some destination points, so-called channels. So what kind of channels we were talking about? Of course, we are talking about the BIM portals. We're talking about our online libraries, our mobile application. We can use it even for generating print catalogs, and even for plugins to the BIM platform. So let's see what can we do with that. This is the example of the online library, which can be a part of your system. The online library, as you can see, can be provided in more than one language, can contain several information about the product, both with projections. Everything can be generated automatically, including the dimensions that you're seeing right now. The users on such online library can download files, and you can be informed who downloads what in order to know which products are most popular, which less, in which regions, and so on. And last but not least, if you have this kind of BIM portal or online library available on your site, and you're not restricting yourself just to use the external BIM portals, you're starting to promote your channels. You're collecting your data, and you're becoming the owner. Apart from the online library, you can also provide your BIM files through the set of plugins. You can have your own plugins, which one of the participants also asked about, which can contain configurators, selection assistants specific for your product portfolio. And due to the fact that you're not sharing neither online library nor BIM plugin with any other vendors, you're able to adapt it to match your needs and your product portfolio needs. And as a result, simplify the designer's work, which we wanted to focus on. But of course, we were talking about the designers. Let's try to focus on a different segment. Let's try to focus maybe on the investors or service professionals. So we could, for instance, have a mobile application which can also be connected with our omni-channel strategy, which can shift specific product portfolio in specific languages, classification system, and so on. It can also provide an information like a 3D geometry, as you can see, like right now, these drawings, which were also generated, like something like 360 degrees view that you can play with. So from this perspective, this is not, of course, a tool for the designers, but this could be a tool for either installer or for even an investor. And this is the example where we could show you how this kind of application could also be used as a tool for, of course, providing the information. Like here you see an information, exact information about the product, like a technical data, but it can also act as a marketing tool, which can be used by the investor, by the sales representative, or during the fairs to present it to the customer. And as you can see here in the end, you can actually use the same object as a part of the augmented reality presentation. All right, and I think that this would be more like a recap of the presentation. Now we're navigating to the last part, so the Q&A. I see that there are already some questions here, so I will try to address them. And just for your information, you will see soon a link to the survey, which we can measure your level of satisfaction. This is very important for us to know whether everything was clear. And right now I will try to answer the question. So first, the question from David: can I just use one of the BIM portal instead? Of course you can. And in the short terms, probably it would be quicker. The question is whether you would like to target several market segments, whether you would like to take control over the data, or you would like to give the control away to someone else, like a BIM portal, and whether you would like to promote your sites, whether you would like to promote your channels instead of the BIM portal. So, of course, going to the BIM portal in the short term might be simple. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't use the BIM portal because they have a wide range of users. But if you would like to address different users, different market segments, different regions, and you would like to take ownership of the data and the full control, then probably, I don't know any manufacturer that focus only on selling on the eBay or Amazon. They have their own distributions, they have their own sites. So this same refers to the BIM files. Next question. What sets BIMStreamer apart from word players like, for instance, BIMobject? All right, so BIMobject is more like a BIM portal, and it's more like its main focus is to providing the service of managing the content, while BIMStreamer is more like a tool which can be installed on the manufacturer side, which manufacturer can control, or if the manufacturer wants, we can control it on his behalf. And it's more like an exclusive solution for the manufacturer rather than a marketplace which is shared across several other manufacturers. So in other words speaking, I would compare it like a BIM portal is more like a train, so you can buy a ticket and you can go, for instance, from Frankfurt to Stuttgart, and then you can get out. While the BIMStreamer is more like a car that you can buy and drive whenever you want. Not sure whether, Mark, this is the answer for your question. All right, Mark is not answering, so I'm assuming that this is the answer. If Mark, if it wasn't the answer, then I would be happy to elaborate. Okay, no worries. So another question from Atipa: how about the electrical cable? Do we need BIM for these types of products? I think that this is more like a question to Jacek.
I can answer this question. In BIM, various parties are involved. Apart from the architect and the structural engineer, also electrical engineers have their part in the design. So in case that the electrical installation is included in the design, then there is a need for providing also the information regarding it. And it's not that the cable needs exactly to be placed in the certain like floor or something. It is important, but I would stress the fact that there's a lot of information provided regarding like the voltage, the size of the cable, and I'm pretty sure that electrical cable, which is a part of a larger system, is needed in the design of any building, let's say the office building, which has a lot of systems involved.
Yeah, so just to recap what Jacek just said, it's maybe the geometry is not that important as the data behind that. Atipa, is that the answer for your questions? Would you like to add something? Okay, great. All right. Are there any other questions? All right. Take silence as no. So I think that. All right. Dieter is writing something. All right. Super. So. Guys, I hope that you enjoyed that, so we can more like wrap up everything. So thank you all for the participants. Like I said at the during the presentation, if you'd like to schedule the meeting, you should see a button soon that would allow you to do that. And where do I have this button? Right, yeah, so you see the button here. So if you would like to schedule the meeting, I'm happy to answer all these questions on in-personal video call. Thank you very much, and hope you see you soon. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.